Welcome to DRTSPR show. This is Dr. Tangella Shiva Prasad Reddy alias Dr. TSPR. Namaste, Adab, hello, and a warm welcome to an important show. Come the 20th January, the coming Monday, the new US government will be sworn in. The Trump, who has won in both popular vote as well as the majority of the electors across US, he will be sworn in. There will be a seesaw change. This is what we have been expecting. People have voted, the US citizens, and the entire world was watching very curiously. It's a world power, and every country, including China, has got a bond with America, whether it is through trade cooperation or otherwise. And India, more specifically, right from students as well as the business, and more so the information technology and the day-to-day changes and emerging technologies. India has been the best source as far as human rights, human resources, consumption of US market is concerned. So in this pursuit, I'm just trying to bring you the basics of what America looks like. Come this 20th January, you will be witnessing a lot of changes, and in that changes, the more pronounced will be the new US Health and Human Rights Secretary, because DRTSPR channels, citizens DRTSPR channels, and environment people DRTSPR channels, along with DRTSPR channel BitChute and Rumble, have been in the forefront in trying to fight the pathology. Being a doctor myself, the pathology, that means the diseased conditions of understanding and disseminating information basically on an issue. That issue was health, COVID-19 time, how people were scared into submission right from America to India. Now the world witnessed, and before they are being sworn in, the Trump administration, including Mr. Kennedy Jr., Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and then Bhattacharya is going to head National Institute of Health, wherein all the amount like Fauci, you might have understood about Fauci, who was heading this, and the game theories and how lab leaks happened, how destructive it was. I'm not saying. I'm warning YouTube, Google, as well as Facebook, Instagram, and all those, because the same Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who has been subjected to absolute censorship, they were not allowing him to go with his ideology of speaking science and truth logically. All these platforms together, because they run through Child Defense, an organization, they have blocked them, blacklisted them. The other day also, even they have taken away the old video, Google and YouTube. It's shame on them. They have sent me the legal this thing. I have responded to them, and I challenged both Google and YouTube. Even today, I'm challenging. I have gone to federal court, and everywhere cases are registered. They're not coming forward. They just take away the vital, crucial, scientific, truthful, and logic information which DRTSPR channel through wonderful guests have been disseminating over the years, as was Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was doing all the while. Similarly, these channels were upright in trying to come to the rescue of the honorable citizens of not just India, the entire world. So the victimization card, and who is funding YouTube, Google, or all those social media platforms, in seeing to that the genuine, correct, scientific, truthful, and logical information is not allowed to reach the citizens, which is their fundamental right as per Article 19. They should have and they should own the information after understanding, and through which they have to act when it comes to health, which medicine they have to take as preventive, which vaccine they have to take, and which sort of the system of medicine they have to take, and why the entire America, including European Union, has been suffering in not allowing innate immunity, the natural immunity which comes through the nature, the foodstuffs which you eat, the genetical predispositions, and the atmosphere you live in. When you become diseased, you will get immunity. Through that protected immunity, the body will on its own, through that wonderful natural food, not lab food as being propagated by Bill Gates. He's shaming the society for his own personal gains. I'm not here whimsically doing this show. I'm challenging anyone. You can come and debate, because I'm going to show all the shows are purely basically on evidential act, as per constitution, as per rule of law only. Now the main aspect, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who has authored The Real Face of Anthony Fauci. What is that you are going to do now? He will be sworn in. And what will be the first order of Trump government? Are they going to dissociate United States of America from World Health Organization altogether? And will there be any changes in CDC and FDA, which were on the top of COVID-19, this thing, all mongering, fear-mongering attitudes? Now they have received, they say now fat is not going to pay any issue. So all this while cholesterol, they used to pump anti-cholesterol drugs. They keep on now red dye. They have withdrawn from the market. All these years, come this Trump and Robert F. Kennedy Jr., these organizations fearing, they have started to withdraw, retract one after the another, which were the main instruments for the so-called disease called cancer and others. Similar way, the vaccines, the Pfizer or mRNA vaccines, whether it is Pfizer or Moderna, how dangerous they were exposed by none other than Robert F. Kennedy. And how American children, right from their age, 0 age, how they were put to these vaccines as if they are foodstuffs. They have exposed. So for that reason, this show is very particular important. Come 20th January, Monday, after swearing in of Trump administration, including Robert F. Kennedy and Bhattacharya, will there be any seesaw change in World Health Order? That is the take from this show. Why we are optimistic is, now I'm going to show you certain things. Now, see, this is the book. I'll just go to their mail. See, it is from Robert F. Kennedy and Children's Health Defense. That is the organization through which he was trying to disseminate information. And they were the authors of these books, these wonderful books. Children's Health Defense, publishing The Real Anthony Face, The Wuhan Cover-Up. These are all by Robert F. Kennedy, A Letter to Liberals. So here, I'll just show you. The Real Anthony Face, Bill Gates, Big Pharma, and The Global War on Democracy and Public Health by Robert F. Kennedy Jr., New York Times best-selling author. I'm not saying now YouTube and Google, are you going to compete and remove this? You'll pay for that. Because it's your own New York Times, it says, this book, The Real Anthony Face, Bill Gates, Big Pharma, and The Global War on Democracy and Public Health. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the New York Times best-selling author. Children's Health Defense, which publishes. Then the Wuhan Cover-Up. How US health officials conspired with the Chinese military to hide the origins of COVID-19. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., New York Times best-selling author. And a letter to liberals. So this is also there. You can just watch what this has got for the world to. A letter to liberals by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And he very clearly speaks on censorship and COVID, an attack on science and American ideals. So now what the entire world will gather from these books by none other than Robert F. Kennedy Jr., The real Anthony Fauci, the Wuhan cover-up, how US health officials conspired with the Chinese military to hide the origins of COVID-19, a literal to liberals, censorship and COVID, an attack on science and American ideals. The latest being the real Anthony Fauci, Bill Gates, Big Pharma, and the global war on democracy and public health. Now, don't you think? The author being the new US Health and Human Rights Secretary, don't you expect there will be a seesaw change in the World Health Order? Is this the reason why CDC, FDA, they have been fearing and running for cover, trying to retract from decades old, all those nonsensical philosophies regarding cholesterol, fat, as well as red dye, all those artificial things? So the take is very clearly there. Even before he is sworn in, the changes have started. Profiles of the vaccine injured. I am not saying. So many books. So there are many others on the same lines like Robert F. Kennedy. So what is that you are going to do now? World Health Organization, as well as even Indians. Because see, Bill Gates, Big Pharma, and the global war on democracy, how Modi tried to associate with Bill Gates. And you know, Bill Gates was the sole reason on Public Health Foundation of India researching on vaccines killing innocents. That we have already exposed that. We'll come back again. So this is how the situation is. So now I'm going to, and even Children Health Defense on record, how they were being crucified by not allowing to share anything. Now Facebook and all say, we are going to remove that blackout. Now I'm just showing this also, the real Anthony Fauci, Bill Gates and Pharma. This book, what it speaks. This is of Robert F. Kennedy. On Amazon, 20 weeks on New York Times bestseller list and a Wall Street Journal, USA Today, and publishes a weekly national bestseller. Now at least YouTube and Google should be ashamed when they will go on removing all this information. Is there. More than 10 lakh copies sold despite censorship, boycotts from bookstores and libraries, and hit prices against the author. Pharma-funded mainstream media has convinced millions of Americans that Dr. Anthony Fauci is a hero. Hands down, he is anything but. As director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, Dr. Anthony Fauci dispenses $6.1 billion in annual taxpayer-provided funding for rigged scientific research, allowing him to dictate the subject, content, and outcome of the scientific health research across the globe. Truly a dark agenda. Fauci uses the financial clout at his disposal in a backhanded manner to wield extraordinary influence over hospitals, universities, journals, and thousands of influential doctors and scientists whose careers and institutions he has the power to ruin, advance, or reward in an authoritarian manner. During more than a year of painstaking and meticulous research on his laptop and through interviews, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. unearthed a shocking story that obliterates media spin on Dr. Fauci. And that will alarm every American, Democrat or Republican, who cares about democracy, our constitution, and the future of our children's health. The real Anthony Fauci reveals how America's doctor launched his career during the early AIDS crisis by partnering with pharmaceutical companies to sabotage safe and effective of patent therapeutic treatments for AIDS. Fauci orchestrated fraudulent do-nothing studies and then pressured US Food and Drug Administration, FDA, regulators into approving a deadly chemotherapy treatment he had good reason to know was worthless against AIDS. Fauci did the unthinkable and repeatedly violated federal laws to allow his pharma partners to use impoverished and dark-skinned children as lab rats in beyond order deadly experiments with toxic AIDS and cancer chemotherapies. In early 2000, Fauci shook hands with Bill Gates in the library of Gates' 147 million Seattle mansion, cementing a partnership that would aim to control an increasingly profitable 60 billion global vaccine enterprise with unlimited growth potential. Through funding, leverage, and carefully cultivated personal relationships with heads of state and leading media and social media institutions, the Pharma Fauci Gates Alliance exercises dominion over global health policy and our beautiful country. This is what Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who will be sworn in as US Health and Human Rights Secretary in his book, The Real Face of Anthony, says. This is not just another political book. The real Anthony Fauci details how Fauci, Gates, and their cohorts used their control of media outlets, both conservative and liberal-leaning, scientific journals, key government and quasi-governmental agencies, global intelligence agencies, and influential scientists and physicians to flood the public with fearful propaganda about COVID-19 virulence and pathogenesis, and to muzzle debate and ruthlessly censor dissent. So this is what the real Anthony Fauci, and it's a good book. I wish every citizen across the globe who believes in science, truth, and logic will buy it, read it, shelve it, so that the fear like pandemic like COVID-19, China, World Health Organization, and Modi and Bill Gates, like entire globe, how they were trying to get you into fear status, will go away once for all. That is why Mr. Modi has not been invited for the oath-taking ceremony till this show, I'm sure, because they were talking about democracy, liberalism, science, truth, how Modi has involved himself with Bill Gates right from Public Health Foundation of India when it started to research vaccines in the name of an antidote to cancer on innocent SC/ST tribal girls when Modi was the Chief Minister of Gujarat. So the same association with Bill Gates continued, and how even his other crony, Mr. Adani, got exposed through American judicial system on corruption charges. Now they are trying to, blow, stating that Hindenburg is shut down. Whether it shuts down or not, but what about the new corruption case which is there? That is why these fellows, they want to divert. Is that the reason they have not accorded any invitation to our Honorable Prime Minister? So it's a Prime Minister who has to react. I have read everything, and the entire book is a big one, because I just wanted to show you how important this book is and how important Robert F. Kennedy Jr. will be to not just America's health of their children and those who have been suffering, but for entire world. So that is the reason why I'm making this show. And as usual, I've shown you all the evidences. Now I'll come back one by one so this is the book, The Real Anthony Fauci, and I've shown you the other books also, how it is going to influence the entire world. So this is the letter which I received. Dr. Shiva Prasad Reddy, anyone pardons Anthony Fauci, let us remember the truth. You can get Robert F. Kennedy. See, this is the best selling. So here, just I'm trying to show you, before anyone pardons Anthony Fauci, let us remember the truth. Before anyone pardons, and even a makeshift like this government before ending its term, there was a congressional testifying of Anthony Fauci to save his skin. That's what I feel. But Robert F. Kennedy knows what he has done. See, he has gone, testifies before the Congress also. Former chief medical advisor to the President of the United States. So what is in store for him, only God knows. So they have already started to remove the pages also. This is what is happening. I only hope.
Of these was in 2020 or 2019 in October. And it was hosted by Bill Gates, by Fauci, and by Avril Haines. I'm sure a lot of you have gone and looked at this on YouTube. It's called Event 201. That same week, Bill Gates, who was overseeing this simulation, bought 1.1 million shares of BioNTech vaccine, which later became the Pfizer vaccine. He then sold that, almost all that stock, 87%, 2 years later, at a $242 million profit. And a week after that, he publicly announced the vaccine didn't work. So this is what you call a pump and dump scheme. Because he was the guy who was on TV with his minion, Peter Hotez, who took $52 million from Gates for his Gates made his institution. So you had the pair of them pumping up this stock for 2 years and then dumping it a week before he goes on TV and says, oh, it didn't work after all. And the last one of these was in 2020 or 2019 in October. And it was hosted by Bill Gates, by Fauci, and by Avril Haines. I'm sure a lot of you have gone and looked at this on YouTube. It's called Event 201. That same week, Bill Gates, who was overseeing this simulation, bought 1.1 million shares of BioNTech vaccine, which later became the Pfizer vaccine. He then sold that, almost all that stock, 87%, 2 years later, at a $242 million profit. And a week after that, he publicly announced the vaccine didn't work. So this is what you call a pump and dump scheme. Because he was the guy who was on TV with his minion, Peter Hotez, who took $52 million from Gates for his Gates made his institution. So you had the pair of them pumping up this stock for 2 years and then dumping it a week before he goes on TV and says, oh, it didn't work after all.
So this is I hope the visitors, the viewers will understand how this has been exposed. And I was trying to do something on the other side. See how they have restricted even Fauci, see how they are not allowing me to Instagram. See, sorry, this page isn't available. It is shame on you, the Facebook, that gentleman who is kneeling down, how they have removed Kennedy's page on Fauci. It's shameful. And I only hope the actions will start once he's sworn in. And I'm just trying to give you the headlines also. Trump vows to exit WHO on first day as president-elect. Is this going to be true? So, lot of changes. And this is what I said. This association. This association may have costed Prime Minister Modi dearly and India too. Prime Minister Modi also stands exposed.
Yeah.
Because I've clearly shown you how that book is going to be a game changer. Now you see.
The basic program was made by some mathematics professors in a college. The office operating system was by a software engineer, and he bought it for $50,000. He's built the empire by creating patents on software. And the first WTO meeting in Singapore gave him tax concessions, which is why all the IT industry moved to India. The fact that Silicon Valley became India's Silicon Valley is because they could save $40 billion annually by paying lower wages for the same work. It was an outsourcing of software, all for Bill Gates. Bill Gates did not invent anything. The basic program was made by some mathematics professors in a college. The office operating system was by a software engineer, and he bought it for $50,000. He's built the empire by creating patents on software. And the first WTO meeting in Singapore gave him tax concessions, which is why all the IT industry moved to India. The fact that Silicon Valley became India's Silicon Valley is because they could save $40 billion annually by paying lower wages for the same work. It was an outsourcing of software, all for Bill Gates. Bill Gates did.
I only hope, because he is also not just health, human rights secretary, also Robert F. Kennedy Jr. These type of evidences will be enough for him to act. I'm just showing what is there in the public domain itself.
To everybody and all the presentations I've been to, the messenger RNA vaccines completely contaminated. They're just not fit for purpose. The Pfizers are all full of SV40. SV40 was what, in my day, we put into mice to make them grow tumours so we could pour chemotherapy into them to see if it worked for the tumours. And we're putting this into humans beyond belief. And that's really what I cannot understand. Now, today, I got sent something from Australia, which I must say, it's the closest I had to being holding my stomach and being sick. It was a Prime Minister doing a deal with Moderna for messenger RNA vaccines for the next 10 years, that you will buy 2 billion Australian dollars of these vaccines off the next 10 years, and they will target all sorts of diseases, and they will be given to children. How much were they bribed to do that? Because I must say, if I was given $1 billion to do this, and it meant it going into children, I would walk away even if it was 10 million. To me, it's beyond belief that you would even consider it. These people behind Moderna and Pfizer are just pure evil, and they must be held to account.
So I'm just trying to get all these evidences, and it's up to the new government to act. And what I'm just
John D. established the Rockefeller Institute for Medical Research. The institute recruited Simon Flexner, a pathology professor at the University of Pennsylvania, to serve as its director. His brother, Abraham, was an educator who was contracted by the Carnegie Foundation to write a report on the state of the American medical education system. His study, the Flexner Report, along with the hundreds of millions of dollars that the Rockefeller and Carnegie Foundations were to shower on medical research in the coming years, resulted in a sweeping overhaul of the American medical system. Naturopathic and homeopathic medicine, medical care focused on unpatentable, unmarketable natural remedies and cures, was now dismissed as quackery. Only drug-based allopathic medicine requiring expensive medical procedures and lengthy hospital stays was to be taken seriously. In 1901, John D. established the Rockefeller Institute for Medical Research. The institute recruited Simon Flexner, a pathology professor at the University of Pennsylvania, to serve as its director. His brother, Abraham, was an educator who was contracted by the Carnegie Foundation.
Yeah, I'm just trying to briefly give you what have been sent to me, and it's left to
a former medical reviewer at Humana.
My name is Linda Pino. I am here primarily today to make a public confession. In the spring of 1987, as a physician, I denied a man a necessary operation that would have saved his life and thus cost his death. No person and no group has held me accountable for this, because in fact, what I did was I saved a company $500,000 for this. And furthermore, this particular act secured my reputation as a good medical director, and it ensured my continued advancement in the healthcare field. I went from making a few $100s a week as a medical reviewer to an escalating six-figure income as a physician executive. In all my work, I had one primary duty, and that was to use my medical expertise for the financial benefit of the organization for which I worked. And I was told repeatedly that I was not denying care, I was simply denying payment. I know how managed care maims and kills patients. So I'm here to tell you about the dirty work of managed care. And I'm haunted by the thousands of pieces of paper in which I have written that deadly word, denied. Thank you.
Linda Pino, former medical reviewer at Humana.
just trying to give only because this would help Robert F. Kennedy to become more, because he has written everything in his book. The CEO of Pepsi was recorded saying he would never let his family touch any of their products. Mark Zuckerberg put tape over his laptop's camera and microphone. Steve Jobs banned his kids from using iPad. Bill Gates strictly limited his children's tech use. The CEO of McDonald's claims he doesn't touch his own company's food. Drug dealers never consume. So this is what the facts are all about. I only hope people understand and appreciate. It is only in your interest I'm trying to do this show. I have nothing against anyone. It has to be understood. I've already shown you this. Oh, goodness. Then this is the one Fauci exposed. That page is gone. Instagram has to come clean on that. Now, another one. This also has gone. This was clear page. Kennedy exposing Bill Gates. The trial already started in Netherlands. See this page. Again, I only hope Robert F. Kennedy will watch this and start initiating action against all.
Your body needs, then something breaks. So you go to the only medicine that your insurance pays for, which is allopathic MD directed medicine. The doctors don't know anything about medical nutrition. They don't believe that the body can cure itself. So they give you a drug that manages the problem. The drug, in its working in the human body, also burns through nutrients. So after 6 months or a year, the drug stops working, or they need to increase its potency, or they need to give you a second or a third drug. And then you get worse, and then you need another drug, and then it gets worse, and then you need surgery, and then you get a secondary infection from the surgery, and then you need another drug for that, and then you die. And then your relatives are so grief-stricken that they organize a 5K run on your behalf to come up with a cure for stomach cancer. And who do they give the money to? The people that failed you in the first place. So you run out of the essential nutrients your body needs, then something breaks. So you go to the only medicine that your insurance pays for, which is allopathic MD directed medicine. The doctors don't know anything about medical nutrition. They don't believe that the body can cure itself. So they give you a drug that manages the problem. The drug, in its working in the human body, also burns through nutrients. So after 6 months or a year, the drug stops working, or they need to increase its potency, or they need to give you a second or a third drug. And then you get worse, and then you need another drug, and then it gets worse, and then you need surgery, and then you get a secondary infection from the surgery, and then you need another drug for that, and then you die. And then your relatives are so grief-stricken that they organize a 5K run on your behalf to come up with a cure for stomach cancer. And who do they give the money to? The people that failed you in the first place. So
this is the sequence, what is happening in America. And he's the one who has killed United Health. Yuki Maguire reportedly visited a gun range in Thailand before allegedly shooting United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Two German tourists who met him during his trip told TMZ Maguire skipped a beach day, opting instead to visit an expensive gun range. Months later, he traveled to New York and allegedly killed the CEO of United Healthcare. We don't encourage this violence, but I'm just showing you how people are getting fed up. But violence is no means to achieve in a democratic country. It should be as per rule of law. No one has a right to kill anyone. We are very clear about that. Now you see.
The FDA has a position that food coloring like 40 are safe for a kid's ingestion. Do both of you stand behind that, Dr. Caleb?
I'm going to refer that to Mr. Jones.
Okay.
We have not evaluated Red 40 in over a decade. Over a decade ago,
We have not.
We have not. At FDA, we have not evaluated the safety of Red 40 in over a decade. So over a decade, that was the conclusion that FDA made.
We are in the process of evaluating Red 3, and you may want to comment on that.
Well, let me say this. Red 3 has been known to cause cancer in cosmetics, but we still allow it to be put in our food. I don't understand that. Go ahead.
So Red 3, we have a petition in front of us to revoke the authorization for it, and we are hopeful that within the next few weeks we will be acting on that petition, and a decision should be forthcoming.
Tell us that process. How does that work? The timeline, if we know something's deadly for anybody that ingests it, how do we continue to just study that and not say, hey, enough's enough?
So Red 3 presents an interesting example for us. It is actually known to be cancer in laboratory animals, rats. But the scientific consensus is that the mechanism of carcinogenicity in rats is not applicable in humans.
So so these are how you blindly believe, because we just said we try to bring you only science, and that's what we are trying to do you. I've already played this. And we'll come to, again, this is
one of these
already
was in
but again,
2020 or 2019 in October. And it was hosted by Bill Gates, by Fauci, and by Avril Haines. I'm sure a lot of you have gone and looked at this on YouTube. It's called Event 201. That same week, Bill Gates, who was overseeing this simulation, bought 1.1 million shares of BioNTech vaccine, which later became the Pfizer vaccine. He then sold almost all that stock, 87%, 2 years later, at a $242 million profit. And a week after that, he publicly announced the vaccine didn't work. This is what you call a pump and dump scheme. Because he was the guy who was on TV with his minion, Peter Hotez, who took $52 million from Gates for his Gates made his institution. So you had the pair of them pumping up this stock for 2 years and then dumping it a week before he goes on TV and says, oh, it didn't work after all.
See how meticulously Bill Gates has been managing both stocks and science. How he's making profits and at the cost of human beings. Are human beings guinea pigs? That's what I leave at that. He has been doctor sentenced for.
Today, a Michigan doctor sentenced, being called a monster. A day of reckoning for the doctor who diagnosed hundreds of patients with cancer when they did not have it. Outside the court, the tears and anger. He lied to so many patients, giving many of them extensive chemotherapy, which then made them sick. So many of those families today coming face to face with the doctor as he was sentenced to 45 years behind bars. And you're about to hear what the doctor said to those families. ABC's Ron Claiborne leads us off.
Judgment Day for the doctor who caused so much pain. Victims of Dr. Farid Fatah outside the courtroom where he was sentenced, hand in hand, then defiant.
45 years for the lives that he took. It just wasn't enough.
In court, the 50-year-old doctor breaking down, saying, I misused my talents, yes, and permitted this sin to enter me because of power and greed. But those words, no comfort for Cheryl Blades.
I could hear him talking to my mother because I went to every appointment. So I could hear him talking to her and promising her to save her.
In all, Fatah pleaded guilty to intentionally misdiagnosing more than 550 patients, often prescribing treatment for cancer that they did not have. He earned more than $17 million as a result.
Dr. Fatah pounced on every opportunity to use a patient's body as a profit center.
One of the patients, 53-year-old Monica Flagg.
Stressful. It was extremely emotional.
We begin with that breaking headline today.
Trying to show you, because these are all the things on which he is going to act. Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
That control the world.
Education is funded by the Rockefeller family. They needed more employees than thinking people. This same family created the Federal Reserve, which invents money out of thin air, generating debt for us. All the money goes through them, and they make money by inventing money. They funded science and medicine, and by owning education, they started training doctors, treating problems, and generating a customer for life to feed their other businesses, being more of a selling point than preventing and curing at the root. Our food no longer has the same amount of nutrients it used to have, thanks to companies that created genetically modified food, which in the long run generates cancer and many other diseases. Our food makes us sick, leading us to medicine. It seems as if all businesses are connected. While education leads us to have a life behind the system and consume these businesses, we spend money that is beholden to the Federal Reserve. What a coincidence that all businesses feed off each other. Many people think they are conspiracies. I used to think so too. But when I started to research about this topic, different authors, such as the one by Sebastian Santisteban, entitled Know the Only Truth, I realized that all this is closer to reality. I began to question my life while freeing myself from a system of manipulation exercised by the elites of fear, raising my level of consciousness and managing to live
They're
a
weird,
life
y'all.
of higher.
This is just one of the families that control the world.
Education is funded by the Rockefeller family. They needed more employees than thinking people. This same family created the Federal Reserve, which invents money out of thin air, generating debt for us. All the money goes through them, and they make money by inventing money. They funded science and medicine, and by owning education, they started training doctors, treating problems, and generating a customer for life to feed their other businesses, being more of a selling point than preventing and curing at the root. Our food no longer has the same amount of nutrients it used to have, thanks to companies that created genetically modified food, which in the long run generates cancer and many other diseases. Our food makes us sick, leading us to medicine. It seems as if all businesses are connected. While education leads us to have a life behind the system and consume these businesses, we spend money that is beholden to the Federal Reserve. What a coincidence that all businesses feed off each other. Many people think they are conspiracies. I used to think so too. But when I started to research about this topic, different authors, such as the one by Sebastian Santisteban, entitled Know the Only Truth, I realized that all this is closer to reality. I began to question my life while freeing myself from a system of manipulation exercised by the elites of fear, raising my level of consciousness and managing to live
They're
a
weird,
life
y'all.
of higher.
So lastly, just trying to, because that is the truth, painful truth, which everyone has to understand. The books and authors, everything is there. Now you see how
the vaccine program. And you know, I'm generally like pretty pro rolling out vaccines. I think on balance, the vaccines are more positive than negative. But I think that while they're trying to push that program, they also tried to censor anyone who is basically arguing against it. And they pushed us super hard to take down things that were honestly were true, right? I mean, they basically pushed us and said, you know, anything that says that vaccines might have side effects, you basically need to take down. And I was just like, well, we're not going to do that. Like, we're clearly not going to do that. I mean, that is kind of inarguably true.
Who is they? Who's telling you to take down things that
it was
that talk about vaccine side effects?
It was people in the Biden administration. I think it was you know, I wasn't involved in those conversations directly, but I think it was.
How difficult is that to not be involved in those conversations directly? Fitness isn't just a
administration when they were trying to roll out the vaccine program. And you know, I'm generally like pretty pro rolling out vaccines. I think on balance, the vaccines are more positive than negative. But I think that while they're trying to push that program, they also tried to censor anyone who is basically arguing against it. And they pushed us super hard to take down things that were honestly were true, right? I mean, they basically pushed us and said, you know, anything that says that vaccines might have side effects, you basically need to take down. And I was just like, well, we're not going to do that. Like, we're clearly not going to do that. I mean, that is kind of inarguably true.
Who is they? Who's telling you to take down things that
it was
that talk about vaccine side effects?
It was people in the Biden administration.
Biden administration, but he is still lying. I've shown you how he manages Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook, how he has removed the incumbent Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s exposure on Fauci and other things also I've shown you. And this daily DRTSPR channels or my WhatsApp page is hacked and it doesn't allow me to go beyond. And even in Facebook, he says this copyright, that copyright. He is lying. And he says he believes in vaccines. He should be tried first. Let him explain the scientific or the reason, the logic behind, because we are not here to impose anything. We are providing you the information, truthful information, scientific, which is and which is logically correct, and so that you can decide on your own. And if you feel the information which we are providing through these DRTSPR channels is not true, you please come back to me on my 9440465339. This is the number. Even WhatsApp is there on this number. You send me all the details, because the show purely runs on rule of law, constitution, invoking evidential act. You share those evidences. We are here to debate, discuss, so that the truth comes out. You can prove us wrong. We are inviting you. So the same way we provide you the information, it is left to every individual citizen to act upon it judiciously, because it is their right. To provide correct information is our job. This is what we are doing. And what sort of decision any citizen, whether it is in India, across the globe, it is left to an individual. So you have to decide based on the truthful information. How well he is lying, I've shown you.
United States is medical intervention. Medical intervention kills about 1 million people a year. Doctors kill over 1 million people a year, and people go to their doctor and think nothing of it. Problem with our medical doctors is that these very good people make the biggest mistake of their life, and they go to medical school. 85% of what they're taught is unscientific nonsense. And then they're cut loose on the general population to practice unscientific nonsense. The medicine we have is now so far behind the science that it is impossible to bring it up to date. We have to take the medicine we have and discard it and start over. Where did we ever get the idea that we can help a sick person if we give them poison? It's a pretty stupid system, but it makes enormous amounts of money, and the drug companies have enormous power. Leading cause of death in the
We are not here to dispute anyone, and whoever is differing, they are most welcome to come onto the show. We will host you. Nothing we are going to hide, because this show is made to show this book very clearly what the real Anthony Fauci, Bill Gates, Big Pharma, and the global war on democracy and public health by none other than Robert F. Kennedy Jr., New York Times best-selling author, and who will be the new US Health and Human Rights Secretary. And I've shown you the other books of Mr. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. also in my first opening remarks. So that is the reason why, whether we are going to see a liberal world which really speaks of science, truth, and logic without converting the human beings, the citizens of the world, as guinea pigs, or the lab-driven procedures for testing or trials. So in doing so, you are trying to take away the fundamental rights of every citizen, their right to life, their right to health, and they are the ones who have to take the decision, but not by this fear-mongering, which defeats science, which defeats truth, and which defeats logic at all. You have to eat good food, which is very natural, devoid of harmful chemical fertilizers and hybridized seeds, which the agriculture, the new fame, we have seen how genetic modified foods are being taken instead of natural foods. So take natural foods, breathe fresh air, walk in the open sun, you get a lot of vitamin D, and at the same time, be happy all the ways. If you want to be happy, you have to have a proper information which will help you to take a decision, whether it is to your life or health. In doing so, DRTSPR channels has been in the forefront with all those wonderful guests disseminating information as per rule of law, constitution, invoking evidential act. Anyone can challenge us. I again invite you through my phone number 9440465339, to which WhatsApp is there attached. You can send all the evidences. We are here to discuss, debate. We may differ. That is the beauty of democracy. At the same time, 9440465339 also has Google Pay and Phone Pay. You can always liberally contribute. And once again, DRTSPR channels and all their viewers wishing the new US government the best of what their promises they have done. The best of them should be implemented very, very soon. And at the same time, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he has written books. He has been very vocal in what has happened in the last 4 years in running to COVID pandemic and how he could expose with evidences. I've read a part of the real Anthony Fauci. What is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. going to do now? Let us wait and watch. Will it be the new health world order in tune with what his philosophical approach in exposing the pandemic COVID, as well as vaccines, as well as the urge of these billionaires like Bill Gates and all in destroying science for their own gains or profits, and in where even our Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, was also part of it. That is the reason why was he not invited. So I leave it at this, again wishing the people of America, the citizens of America, a wonderful rule under Trump administration. At the same time, I only hope, as a democracy, we only hope the Biden administration, the Democrats, they will also be there to help to see that the society is purely run on science, truth, and logic, wherein people are allowed, citizens are allowed to discuss, debate. They may differ, but that is what beautifully we say democracy is all about. So let us all contribute to the success of democracy, wherein people breathe fresh, people breathe that freedom which will help them to discuss, debate. And I only hope these social media platforms, whether it is YouTube, Google, the Facebook, or that Meta, Instagram, WhatsApp, whatever it is, even the truth of the Trump administration, Trump family, will all allow the citizens to speak freely with absolute freedom. If there is anything wrong, you are always there. The system is always there. The rule of law is always there to correct them, but not censor them, but not try to create that fear mongering as was done and as is being done today also, again, in the name of MPV virus. Being doctors ourselves, we should see that there is no fear except science, except truth, except logic. And at the same time, the nature evolved food through natural farming only, and allowing all the citizens to go out, breathe fresh, and enjoy themselves in that natural sunlight, which will help them to gather more and more vitamin D, so that they will have the natural humoral immunity intact without needing any artificial means, come whatever may. So I dedicate this show to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who will be sworn in as the US Health and Human Rights Secretary. And I only hope there will be a new health world order. At the same time, the human rights aspect, which was there just nothing but a lip service, will become real human rights. That is how we are expecting Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to act. Thank you very much. Do support DRTSPR channels, Citizens DRTSPR channel, and Environment People DRTSPR channels. They are all in larger public interest only.